Today we're going to fill in our big letter with words about our subject. To start that, you want to start a new type layer, and you're going to change your color to pure white, which is the hex number FFFFFF, 6 Fs. Say OK. And then I'm going to just work with a 30-point font size to start with. And I can just adjust that later with the transformation. And this is where you can have some fun with a lot of different fonts. So the first word I want to put up here, or actually phrase, is I want to type in the Queen of Pop, because Madonna is sometimes referred to the Queen of Pop. So I'm going to find a nice script font for that. We'll try this one, and I can change it if I don't like it. Okay, I'm just going to move this out where I can see it. Okay, not my favorite script font, so I'm going to highlight that, go back up and find another one that I might like. Okay, so I'll stick with that one. And you're going to be doing some transformations with all this text. So here are some reminders. First of all, you never ever want to distort your text. When we do our transformation, and I'm just going to hit Command T, to size this, to make it larger and smaller, you pull only from these corner nodes while holding Shift. Don't ever pull from the sides or the top and bottom, because even if you're holding Shift, it will distort with those nodes. So it has to be a corner node and holding Shift. And you always want to let go of the mouse first and then let go of the Shift key. Okay, so that is sizing. Now, to move it around, you grab anywhere except for this little center node. Sometimes I've seen you guys grab this center node and you notice that it's not moving. Well, I will show you what that's for in a little bit so you understand what that center node is for, but it's not for moving. So you have to grab anywhere except for the center node. Now, as I'm moving this around, I'm noticing that it's snapping around, and I don't want that. I need to be able to freely place this. So let me go ahead and accept that where it's at, and I want to go up to View, and my snap has a check next to it. That tells me that yes, that my snap is on. So I'm just going to click on that to get it off of snap. Okay, so I'm going to hit Command T again, and I want to run this along this edge vertically. So I'm going to move my mouse outside of my text box, and you'll notice I get the curvy arrow with an arrow on both ends. And I'm going to click and start turning. Now, if I hold the Shift key, it's going to snap into certain places, and one of those places is right at 90 degrees. So if you're trying to turn it completely vertical to 90 degrees, or maybe at 45 degrees or 180 degrees, turn it completely upside down, hold Shift as you're turning. And then I can move it down and place it. And to get it perfectly placed, you can also use those little arrow keys on your keyboard to nudge it. And I'm going to nudge it right to the edge there because I really want to fill in this M. But I'll also make this a little bit larger. So I'm going to hold Shift. Now that I have it placed, I can kind of see how large I want it to go. And then accept. Okay, so I have my first set of words in place. I'm actually going to nudge it a little bit more to the edge there, but not going over. Right there. Okay, the second thing I want to do is type in one of Madonna's songs, and I think this was actually her first #1 hit, and the name of that song was called Lucky Star. So I'm going to click again to start a new text layer. And I want to show you something. I'm going to not accept this. I want to show you something that happens sometimes. If I go too close to the M, what it does is it grabs my M text layer and it changes the size, it changes the font back to Verdana, and it also changes the color back. So in order to avoid that, because that will end up driving you crazy if you continue just grabbing your large letter and it keeps switching the color and switching the size, and then you have to go back and fix that. What you want to do is you want to hold shift. If you're close to anything else, hold shift when you click, and that will start a new text layer, which it did. However, it's still big and Verdana and blue because that was the last thing I clicked on, so I do need to change it this time. So remember, just hold shift to avoid that so you're not driving yourself crazy. Okay, so I want to do Lucky Star in a black letter font, which is kind of that old English looking font. So let me see if I can find one before I begin. Okay, we'll try Old London. So I'm going to, this is two separate words, Lucky Star, it's not one word. So I'm going to type them separately though, because I want to place one on top of the other. So I'm going to start with Lucky, and I do like that font, and I want to move it right up into this corner. Okay, and then Star. And it's not, I'm not worried about Lucky and Star being the exact same font size, because this is a creative project. It's not, I'm not creating a flyer. I'm really creating a piece of artwork. So some of those typography rules that might apply to graphic design may not apply here because it is a creative project. Okay, and then I'm going to increase my Queen of Pop to fill in this space up here that has been created. Okay, and now I'm going to type in a new word. I'm going to hold shift so I don't accidentally grab that M. And I'm going to type in Evita, which is a movie that Madonna starred in, you may have heard of. But I'm going to go through and find a font that I might like for that. Okay, that'll work for Evita. And then I want to show you, you might remember I had talked to you about what this center thing does. So if I come out and I twist this, you'll notice it spins along that center point. If I move that center point into a different spot and I twist it, notice now it's pivoting along that new center point. You can even move that outside of your word, and now it's going to spin. So wherever you put that center point, that is where it's going to transform from. So that is what that is for. So that is why when you grab it and you move it, it just moves. It doesn't move the entire word. Okay, so let me move Evita in here. Okay, and the more I'm looking at this font that I chose for the Queen of Pop, the more I do not like it. So I'm going to change that. And then I'm going to continue filling this thing in, and I will speed up for this part. You can also do that trick where you highlight the font window and just scroll through it. once you get all of your words in your big letter filled in, you can test this by going down to your big capital letter and turning the visibility of that layer off, and then step back and look at what you have and just make sure that it appears to be the letter that you want it to appear to be. Once you're happy with that, we're going to go ahead and group these. I also want to point out a few things before we do that though, that you'll notice I used a lot of these little webbed dings and wing dings and little characters to fill in odd spaces. Feel free to do that. Just don't overdo it, and just make sure it's something that kind of makes sense for the subject that you're working with. Okay, so to finish up, we're going to select the bottom text layer, not including the big capital letter. So that needs to stay out of this. That's really important. And then you go all the way up to the top, hold Shift, and select your top text layer. And I'm going to scroll back down just to make sure that I don't have my big capital layer in here. Then I'm going to grab those down to the Make a New Group folder. And you'll notice I have a group now, and I can open that, and there's all my text layers, and I can close it to make my layers panel a lot neater. I'm going to double click on that and call it text. Then I'm going to duplicate that text group, and I'm going to move the text copy down underneath my gradient fill 1 layer and turn it off. That is to keep there for safekeeping in case I make a mistake along the way, because the last thing I want to do is have to redo all of these text layers, because that took a lot of time. That's going to take a couple of days, by the way, so you'll need at least 2 computer days to get that done. Then I'm going to go to my text layer and I'm going to merge this group by right-clicking and going down to Merge Group. Okay, so now my text layer here is a rasterized layer. It's no longer editable text. So if I had made a mistake or I need to go back in time somehow, this layer is not going to help me at all, which is why it's really important that we have this text copy layer. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and save this into our folder and wait for the next tutorial.